Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Buckle up. I'm excited for episode today. Before I introduce you to our guest, here's a quote just for this episode. Convictions are more dangerous enemies of truth than lies.
Mm,
Friedrich Nietzsche. Our guest today, friend of the Culture Matters podcast. Been on the show before,
mhm.
founder of an elevated business, a great business, leader, friend, episode 581, 209, 772. The one and only Christopher Tighe is back, member of our
Excellent.
friends at Board of Advisors,
That's right.
an amazing contributor there. Very excited to always see you in wherever we are in the
Hmm.
quarterly gathering of minds. But thanks for coming back to the Culture Matters
Yeah.
podcast. I'm excited.
Yeah, same here, Jay. It's always fun to be here, man. This is a lot of fun for me. Whenever you send me a text, I'm like, yep, I'm in, man. Let's do it. I have no idea what we're going to talk about, but I know it's going to be fun.
And the host of Caffeinated Contractor, right?
The caffeinated contractor. Yep, correct.
What have you learned from being a caffeinated contractor on the Caffeinated Contractor show in 2025 so far?
Well, what I learned earlier this year is that when I first launched my target audience was primarily to focus on homeowners who are doing research on remodels, renovations, and things like that. I was doing it for SEO purposes and help with keywords and blogging and just getting exposure and stuff. But what I found was that majority of the people listening to the show were other contractors. And as time went on, I got 24, 25 episodes in. I said, I don't get that much energy, nor do I completely enjoy doing content for the homeowners. But what I really enjoy and I get excited and I get a lot of energy is when I talk to other contractors about how I've been able to do different things in my business to include remote team members that we talked about in previous shows, how I learned SEO, SOPs and things like that. And so I'm like, well, why don't I just change the focus of the show where since majority of the people listening to my show are contractors, maybe I just focus on them because that's where I get excited. That's why I enjoy the most. And those are my people and I love helping them out. So that was a big shift in 2025 so far.
What is it about contractors that they stub their toes?
Well, the biggest complaint people have of contractors is they don't communicate very well. Their paperwork is messy. They don't do a very good job invoicing. If they do invoice, it's like 60, 90 days down the road. It causes a lot of frustration. But if you look at the source of the problem, the source of the problem is that the contractors are just busy doing their contracting stuff and all the paperwork and the back office admin stuff just kind of gets put to the side. And really, they don't only pay attention to it when they notice, oh, my bank account's getting low. I better start invoicing, right? So I've been able to create systems in my company where I leverage remote team workers to do all of that for me. And I'm not behind on paperwork. I'm not behind on invoicing. I'm not behind on all these things. My subcontractors are getting paid and everything's being documented and, it's full disclosure. So um, that's where they just don't understand the the ability, the power of leveraging remote team workers where you can hire quality talent at a fraction of the cost on payroll. So that's where I see that's the problem I'm focusing on.
Quality talent at a fraction of the cost is to have a better overall product that impacts the customer.
Yeah, exactly. Because for us, we have constant communication with the homeowners, and it's not coming from me. Um, Projects are not delayed because I have someone dedicated to doing permits, talking to the architects, the engineers, the subcontractors. All of that is being done in Mexico. I'm not doing any of it. Of course, I know what's going on, but I'm not having to do the work. And because I have someone dedicated to do all that stuff, things are not being delayed.
Wow. How do have you thought of teaching that to contractors?
That's what the new focus of the caffeinated contractor is now, is where I'm teaching people how to do that. I actually turned it into an LLC just a month or so ago, and I've got people, including some people in the board of advisors, who have reached out to me and asked me to help them develop a remote team to help out um, their systems and operations.
What are some of the things that people frequently asked questions around remote team that come up?
Um, how does it work? Do you trust them? Do I have enough work to give them? How do I know if they're working? A lot of them is fear-based type stuff. Uh, and the biggest one is, well, are they going to steal from me? Are they going to steal my money? Right? And so obviously there's never, a sure guaranteed answer to that. But my response to that is I've heard many stories where employees have stole from employers and they were sitting right next to them. So whether they're sitting right next to them or they're sitting in Mexico, either way, if you don't have the proper measures in place to keep that from happening, it's going to happen.
What uh, what are some of the proper measures?
Well, for example, like for me, I've got a finance manager. She's in Mexico City. She's watching my account. I give her view only access on my account. So she's watching the money in, money out. Nobody spends any money unless we talk to her. And she approves all the payments to the subcontractors. She makes sure that we're collecting money from the clients. But let's just say she had some kind of access to the money, which she doesn't. She only has view only. We also have a bookkeeper here in the US who's monitoring and tracking everything, and we go over every single, well, not every single transaction, because we do have a budget, and anything that's out of the budget or anything that looks kind of fishy, we meet every month and we talk about those things. So there's no way, obviously my finance manager, I have a high trust in her. I don't think she's going to do anything to harm the company. She's been with me for 3 years now. But let's just say, I had someone else in that seat and they wanted to do something bad. I have someone else who's actually monitoring their activity to make sure that's not happening, right? So it's just really the monitoring, putting the systems in place, and just watching the numbers and making sure that they're in line with what you're looking for. And if there's nothing bad, then you're good. If there's something kind of fishy going on, then okay, cool. Put a stop to everything, investigate, and see what's happening.
Uh,
Fortunately, that hasn't happened to me.
on the caffeinated contractor, you do a lot of interviews?
Um, I will be doing some interviews. Yeah, I'll be doing actually, yes, I will be doing interviews. I've been doing a lot of storytelling of my own experience lately. I've interviewed my executive assistant so she could tell her story and how she helps me out. And we're going to dive in a little bit more on that, like exactly like how can she run my calendar? How can she do my scheduling? How can she go through my email and do all that stuff for me, just to give people an idea of like, oh wow, gosh, I didn't realize someone could do that for me, right? So from there, then we're going to go into more people like, I talked to you at the board of advisors to see if you can come on because I would love to talk about team culture in the virtual world because that's important. Leadership in the virtual world is a little bit different than if you have everyone in place because you have to over communicate to the team. You have to constantly talk to them so that they feel that they're still a part of the team because it's
Cool.
when yeah, go ahead.
No, no, that's interesting. Keep going. So
Because
what?
if you have that distance and you don't actually have never met that person in life ever, and you only see them on Zoom every couple of weeks, you have to be intentional with that communication. Because one, they have to feel a part, like if they're a part of the team, that they're doing a good job. You got to give them feedback, and also just the team camaraderie. You need to have everybody just kind of feeling like they're in the same office without actually being in the same office.
I want to pose a thought experiment to you and get your feedback.
Uh-huh.
You said you have to, right? So I want to also say, and that's virtually.
Yep.
In person, I want to also say, and in person, you air quotes have to.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if this is the right way to frame it, but the reason I say air quotes is I find it interesting psychologically. Because think about it, if you said you have to, well, of course, right? We have to because we're
Mm-hmm.
we're not seeing them in person. We can't take them for granted.
Right.
There's an inherent accountability. We're being held to account for the very limited time we have. Like right now, I'm present with you. I better be.
Right.
we haven't seen each other in a while. We're not going to spend. It's like this is all we got. You're on the
Right.
other side of the country. I'm here. There's like an implicit account. We're held to account. There's an implicit accountability being virtual
Right.
because we only are going to spend a couple hours every year together.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if we went to an office every day, there's less accountability because
Mm-hmm.
we're spending more time together. But I would so my thought experiment is you said we have to be more intentional. I would argue that if we're in person and we have an office,
Mm-hmm.
to have a culture, you have to be intentional. But it's air quotes because you could just take it for granted. Like, meaning every conversation doesn't have to be intentional. I see Chris every day by the water cooler at 4 o'clock. So I could pull up
So
my
that's
phone.
that's the point right there, right?
Yeah, if
When
you could
you're in
expand
person,
on,
yeah, when you're in person, and I tell people this all the time, Alma on my team, for example, she's my operations manager. And I can't go to Alma's office like, oh, I need a break. I'm going to go to Alma's office and just chit chat for 15, 20 minutes, see how her weekend was, or talk about her boys, or ask how her parents are. Yeah, I can't do that. So I have to intentionally create that environment by, hey, send her a message. Or when we have our one-on-one meetings, I have to be like, let's have that conversation where we're talking about non-work stuff. So that way we can get together and get to know each other more on a personal side and have that good relationship,
and
right?
if you don't, what happens?
Because then it's transactional. Your whole team is transactional. It's not relational.
And
And
then
they,
what
they,
happens?
they feel like they're a number. They don't feel like they're part of a team or a family.
And then what happens?
And then they start seeking out an environment where they want to work rather than with you,
And you're
right?
saying the virtual, it really goes to shit.
In my opinion, yes.
And this is where I want to agree with that and acknowledge something that's the interesting elephant in the room, in a sense, for the Culture Matters podcast.
Hmm.
The leader that doesn't do that in person, they're not leading.
Correct.
So I just,
Correct. They're managing, they're not leading.
but there's an interesting paradox that is like those that would be attracted to virtual
Hmm.
might just be those that need to learn how to do what you're saying, whether it's virtual or not.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
you have such a, I think the audience, Chris, you have such a, you're so intentional and aware, and this is like you've trained in leadership
Hmm. Hmm.
development.
Right. Yeah. It's taken a while for me to get to this point. A lot of books, a lot of podcasts,
Yeah,
getting
well,
a
how many
master's degree in
years would you
leadership.
say, or hours would you say you put into, like, right? What would could be the if there was a formula for what gone to the point where you could lead this team nationally or internationally,
Hmm.
virtually, and have such a alignment and productivity? How many hours do you think you put into learning how to do that? Years.
Gosh, that's something I never put thought to. It's a continuous thing. Every day I'm listening to something, and majority of the things I listen to or read are primarily about leadership. Um, so I would say when I became first aware of this was in 2014. I can't remember if I shared this before, but I was taking a program at the University of San Diego. It's a master's in global leadership, and it's a business degree in leadership. And my first class that I took was a leadership class in um, leading a virtual team, an international virtual team over Zoom or whatever it might be. And this is 2014. And I took that class. I'm like, this is stupid. When is this going to ever happen? Right. Then obviously
Wow.
COVID changes things. And then I learned about the remote team workers. And then, oh wow, I guess I guess it is a thing, right? So what I've done is not just the books and everything that I've read, it's the leadership practicing that I did in the military for one. The other thing that helped me out quite a bit was before all this entrepreneur stuff, I worked at a church and we were really big into doing small groups. And I had a really tight small group where we did, you know, different things to make create an environment where the people in the group will feel comfortable getting vulnerable, talking about certain things, right? Because I feel if you get vulnerable, you get a tighter relationship, and that's where real relationships grow. And I'm like, well, how can I do that in the virtual world? So we started doing virtual training with my team where we would watch a video together, and then we would just share our own personal perspective. And a lot of times that led to team members, talking about family members, crying, talking about different experiences that are either good or bad. And so I would just say my experiences of all of that has really helped me create something with my company in the virtual world.
Hmm. Now the elevation construction.
Mm-hmm.
Are you seeing a rise in, because you consider this is a broker model, so you're brokering, um, let's say, uh, asset manager X with general contractor Y. Right, general contractor is going to do the work. You're
Mm-hmm.
brokering. You actually get the job from the customer, which is like
Mm-hmm.
X.
Right.
You're going to communicate, you're going to align them with Y, and your
Right.
internal team is going to make sure all the I's and T's are dotted.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So,
Exactly.
what's your take on that market as a whole? Growing, stagnating, declining? What are your thoughts? Like the actual opportunity in that brokering, third party.
I think it's a great opportunity because the other thing we were talking about the people in the trades that we were talking about earlier, they might be really great at swinging hammers. Of course they are, right? That's what they do. Swinging hammers, whatever it might be, electricians, plumbers, whatever. They're really good at their craft, but are they good at sales? Are they good at marketing? Do they have a good website? Do they have a back office team to help them out? Well, majority of the time it's a no, right? They just know how to do good work. So if I find those guys, which I have, if I find those guys, I do the marketing, we do the sales, we do all the communications, we have the systems in place, and we just say, hey, you give us your numbers, we get the job, you get the job, right? And then you manage the project. Like we have one of my subcontractors actually does our project management for us. So it allows me to kind of step away and focus more on growth. So once we have this model working, now that I have this, I was telling you before the show, I'm bringing on this social media guy, and we're going to do Facebook ads now. We've never done ads before. And then now we got this virtual sales guy who's going to follow up on all of our leads that have gone quiet on us. Now that I have marketing, sales, operations, finance, I've got those departments filled up with remote team workers. I could step out and like, okay, I got this running here in Houston. Now let me start getting more visibility and some jobs up in Dallas. I'll find a team up there that will do the same thing for me up there, like all the contractors up there. Do it in Dallas. I can take that, copy and paste into San Antonio, Austin, whatever it might be.
Can you do it cross state without going physically into another state?
I could, yeah, I could. I just need
How?
to have
How?
the contractors who I need that strategic partnership with a contractor who I can rely on and do a good job. Somebody who's like my guys here. I'll give you an example. I do work up in Washington State still. That's where I started. I've got one, two projects going on right now. The subcontractor I have up there, I haven't talked to him in over 3 years because he's plugged into our system. He just talks to my team and that's it. We still get the job done. So it's all about finding the right person who is like, hey, you guys do all the marketing and sales, I'll do all the work, and we got this great teamwork here. And if I have someone like that, then I can do that in multiple locations.
What are the biggest roadblocks for those? Why? Okay, if I understand it, these subcontractors, their a lot of their weaknesses have to do with paperwork
Mm-hmm.
and back end, correct? Early in the conversation, but or no?
Yeah, it would be that. It would be the communication piece. For example, our subcontractor here, the main guy doesn't really speak English all that well. So if we're communicating for him, he can just focus on working. We do all the communication for him and it works.
And the sales and marketing, as far as like the types of customers that you can provide, what's that avatar look like?
Well, we've changed over the last 2 years because initially we were focused on like multifamily investors, and they've kind of, 2022, they stopped spending as much money. So we had to get into more of the residential homeowner stuff. So right now, when we do our ads, we're focusing more on, 35 to 65-year-old. Primarily, the people who call us are females. Disc profile, they'll be an S because they, emotional about their kitchen or bathroom being remodeled, and the ads are going to be focused on kitchen and bathroom. The reason being is that those are very fast and quick jobs. You get the cash flow keep coming.
You mentioned personality a few times, DISC, for
Hmm.
example.
Right.
Why? Why is that important? Why do you use that?
Because you approach each person differently. If you have, let's say, for example, every now and then we'll get an engineer who contacts us and they're a high C, maybe even a D, right? So now they're very detail oriented and they like to control everything. And so to interact with them is completely different than somebody who is like, oh, I can't wait to have this kitchen for my daughter's whatever. That's in a different type of communication piece. And we do better with someone who's got an S profile because, the team knows how to work with that a little bit better and they're
Do you
easy to
have
work
all the
with too.
customers take these tests, or have you figured out
No,
another?
it's just based on experience of like, just talking to them. And, obviously you just kind of assume some things, but when you talk to some people, you can kind of, a lot of times guess what kind of disc profile they
How
are.
much time did you put into studying DISC to be able to analyze people that quickly and that accurately?
I started doing disc as well. Actually, the first time I got exposed to it within 2017. And I didn't really dive into it until maybe 2020 when I started my companies and I wanted to hire the right person for the right job or for the jobs. And disc profile is a part of that.
And which profile would it lean higher on? Which that type of behavior or tendency, which would that correlate to, the D, the I, the S, or C, meaning the type of person to go and analyze everybody and try to figure out which one
So
that
that would
they
be my
were.
my profile, right?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
curious which that leans into.
Yeah. So my disc profile, I'm a
Um,
CD,
okay.
so I'm very detail oriented. And D's says makes I believe that means dominant, but it's essentially you're not afraid to make decisions, things like that. If I'm going through a season where I'm like heavy decision making type thing and I'm able to delegate more, sometimes my D will be a higher score than my C. So they're very, very, very close to each other.
Would you say then C? So higher C is probably someone that's going to try to figure out
Hmm.
someone's personality.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Hmm.
then attempt to, and now that what but it comes to mind that the I think there's a level of S involved, in the sense of, if I'm going to adapt my personality to my counterpart based on my conceptualization of their
Hmm.
personality, I think
Yeah.
that's some S too.
Yeah. So I've got a
Like that would be an
probably
S thing to do. Like a really high
exactly.
D would say, "Oh fuck, I don't give a fuck." They
Yeah,
would curse
exactly.
just like that,
Right.
like out of hubris. But I'm saying that's
Hmm.
emotionally intelligent, I would say, of you, if you're also not just analyzing,
Hmm.
you're going. I like to look at, I was making a, because I was actually re-listening to our episode 581 and I loved it.
Hmm.
And it made me think about disc. And I looked up before this episode, I pulled up disc and I was looking at it and I sent a picture to a friend. I said, if you're a high D, I, and C, you're a dick without S as a leader.
That's right.
I'm
You
gonna pull.
are.
I'm gonna screen
That's
share for
funny.
those on YouTube. I'm screen sharing. I think I have a. I had the disk thing pulled up. We can pull it. What is
That's
disk? Yeah,
hilarious.
here's the, see the diagram?
Yeah.
Let me minimize you so I can you see that?
Hmm. Yep.
So if you could just coach us through this. So we got the DICS. D is,
Hmm.
see, can you see that?
I can, yeah.
So it says all right, you read the D, I'll
The
read the.
D's dominance, results, direct, and competitive.
So how would you elaborate on that?
For me, and this is just my perspective on it. Someone who's a D is just someone who's not afraid to take initiative and make decisions, right? So they take what they have. And what I like, so for example, like an executive assistant for me would be good to have a D because sometimes you have to make assumptions based on your boss's, priorities, and you have to make a decision on his or her behalf, right? So you would need a D in that in my opinion. So a D is someone who, the way I see it, is not afraid to make decisions, likes to be in charge at times, and is direct. Yeah, direct and competitive. I mean, those words are
Do
very
you
accurate.
like to win or do you hate to lose? That's a question for you, for me. Which one more?
For me,
What's more important, to win or do you hate to lose?
well, I would say win, and then this is why I like to win more. This is why, because I think there's value in the losses. Because when you lose, sometimes that you learn bigger lessons.
You're such an S. Dude, this is so fun. We should invite people on the show and like go through this. I love these tests because I'm well, yeah, I love analyzing them,
Yeah.
like or teaching through the yeah, that's such an S response.
I
I
do have
love
a
it.
medium level score in S, and it's funny when I was taking my leadership class back in my master's program at USD. My PhD professor, we did. I don't know if I wrote a paper or whatever it was. He says, "Chris, you have the leadership qualities of a female," and I wasn't
That's
sure how to
great.
take that, but I guess obviously sometimes the female leaders lead differently, and they do have an S in them where they do
Well, and
care.
I should be more fair now that I'm even looking
Yeah.
at this. I mean, there's optimism in there and contemplation. It's a very philosophical response.
Hmm.
It, but I think what screams out in that response to me is integration, and that's the type of people that people want to work for.
Yep. Agreed.
It's easier to work for someone that has amiability in that way. Now, it can easily they can be, the one concern one naturally a naturally occurring phenomenon for that could be customer relationships where they run over the person.
Yep.
So having strength and having data and being able to have direct conversation and not avoid conflict. Peterson taught me that a conflict avoided is conflict multiplied.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, because he actually admits he had said it at the top contractor school retreat when he spoke on rule number 4 and beyond order and rule number 9 on 12 rules for life. It was rule 9 was assume that the person you are listening to knows something you don't. And rule 4 was notice that opportunity lurks where responsibility has been abdicated. And he said that he
Mm.
actually doesn't like conflict, which is why he actually has it.
That he actually has the conflict. That's why he doesn't like it.
He doesn't like it, which is why he does it.
Oh, gotcha.
Because if he doesn't do it, it gets bigger.
Mm. That's a good point.
It's there's like this Bernard Shaw quote that comes to mind. It's like, be careful to do business with pigs because you'll end up rolling around in the mud and they enjoy it. One of you will enjoy it or something like
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing, but it's be careful rolling around or getting in business with a pig
Mm-hmm.
or in a fight with a pig because you'll both end up in the mud, but one of you enjoys it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, fun. So the what about C?
C would be, it says here, compliance, accurate, cautious, and the last one is contemplative. So this is someone who's very detail oriented. For example, an accountant would be a high C because they are monitoring every single penny in the account, right? If you have an high I would be like an outgoing person who's really more geared towards sales, you don't want to have an I doing an accountant job because you'd be like, hey, stop talking. I need you to do the math. Right. And then
Mm.
on the same token, you don't want to have someone who's a high C and who's an accountant going out and do your sales calls because they're very directing to the point. Like, do you want to buy this or not type attitude, right? Rather than, building a relationship. So that would be a high C. That's an extreme case, but that would be an example of what a C is.
I love that. I'd rather have a C converting sales based on a higher investment in marketing than I would have an I, because the I is already trying to create new ones. Can't, you know what? You know, one thing you often see is the quote unquote hunter salespeople that
Mm-hmm.
can't fulfill.
Yeah.
They're incapable of farming.
Mm.
It's like I want someone more on a C to convert based on marketing because they'll actually show up and work. They're more conscientious.
Yeah. It's
Maybe
so
they have a bit more S because they're able to, they can sit still and like follow up and maintain a relationship. Whereas there's some leaning more into narcissistic qualities. They're better at like, it's almost like some people are better at monogamy and some people are better at polygamy.
mm,
And that's maybe a too intense of an analogy. Like, so, you have somebody that's really good at going on a lot of first dates. You
yeah,
would think,
I
oh,
I
it'd be great.
understand.
You'd be great. And, you're so good with women. Why can't you stay married?
Yeah.
Well, I only like the first date. There's a two, there's like different types of salespeople.
The solution though, the way I see it is you have the I to help build relationship. You get that influence and enthusiasm, especially if your avatar is an S, right? And then you get the I, but you team that I up with someone who's in high C. And that high C person is making sure the CRM is being updated, all the notes are being done, the bids are coming in on time, doing all the follow ups with the subcontractors, making sure the tasks are being completed, right? You have that C as a backup to be kind of like the compliance. Hey, don't forget, you got to follow up with this person. You got 5 tasks here that or tasks you haven't completed. You team them up with each other, and that way they work on each other's their strengths, right? The C doesn't want to talk to the client
Brilliant.
because they're afraid. But the I wants to
What?
talk all day
Brilliant.
long. But the C is like, okay, let me gather everything that you just did and let me put it in the C arm and make sure it's all done.
This is where I think, and I actually want to acknowledge you. I think you actually, based on, well, think about this podcast, for example. This
Mm-hmm.
is an I behavior.
Yeah.
You're sharing your intellectual property and wisdom with the world. Every time you come on here, you teach, you share, you're optimistic, you're not negative and cynical, you're easy to talk to. You teach, so you create
Mm-hmm.
influence.
Mm-hmm.
So I would use like your business model. You basically bring the C and the I to these non-caffeinated contractors.
Non-caffeinated.
They're not caffeinated enough
Yeah.
because right. So you're bringing them you're getting them the business with your I,
Mm-hmm.
and you're supporting them with the C, and
Exactly.
they like working with you because you have a just enough S and D.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think
That's
that's a formula for success.
never thought of it that way. You know what's interesting? My I in my disc test is extremely low.
Yeah, well, that's why you married your wife, who's great.
She's a higher C than me.
No, I don't know. I've you said some things that make me think that there's a strong power couple element to that.
Mm, yes.
And sometimes listen, I'll tell you in my own, I'm one thing I have to elevate. I tend to elevate my wife and de-elevate me sometimes because she's so great. I'll diminish myself and she's
Mm-hmm.
trying to help me through that. So I was about to say like I'm nothing without Jenna. No, I'm great and she makes me better. And what I've
Right.
noticed though in some contexts, I can take a step back and be a little bit less of an I because I want
Mm-hmm.
to I'll adapt to my environment. That's the S in me to because she has such a great, an outgoing personality, and it's good. I've done that over time. It's maybe less narcissistic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I do actually see a lot of, listen, at the end of the day, the test, what you've chosen to do by starting your business and have it successful and go on these podcasts and join these communities and create these groups, those are all I behaviors.
Yeah,
So at
they
the
are.
end of the
They are.
day, the founder is gotta be an I, or else the right, without a vision, the people will perish.
Exactly.
So I like, so one of the downsides with these tests and any test is we tend to put ourselves in boxes and not realize that we're
That's the
all of them.
problem. That's the problem. I did
Yeah,
have
we're all
someone.
of them. I mean,
We are.
I could be, I was less good of a question asker before I realized I was bad at it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more outspoken on this episode with you as a consequence of our relationship. And I've been working on being a bit more of an I on the podcast, not just an S and a
Mm-hmm.
C, because I'll prepare a lot like C. I'll
Right.
really lean in and be patient and try to like be humble and ask questions and be less of a D
Mm-hmm.
so that I could be a better interviewer, right?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
But this is my approach. I'm an attempt at more of a conversation podcast where I'm a little bit of an I, a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of more of a D. Because
Mm.
there was one point you will love this, and Mike, I took one of these tests 10 years ago, and I was
Mm-hmm.
99 in D and I and zero in the other two.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, and today I've actually become my I went down a lot, and my D. Well, I took a different test, and it was a very
Yeah.
interesting how because I was in more of like an inquisitive. I mean, if you just listen to the podcast, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was just listening and asking questions for years and kind of
Right.
taking a step back
Mm-hmm.
to stop public speaking, all of that. So
Right.
it's fascinating to look at and talk through this with you though today. I've enjoyed it thoroughly. We should do it again with some of the. I was thinking about taking the Strength Finder one. You ever do that one?
You know what? I did a couple of years ago. I can't remember what the results were, but I I do like that one as well.
Have you ever heard of the Big Five?
No.
Yeah, I took that. It's openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, neuroticism, and agreeableness. You never heard of that?
No, I don't think I have.
It's like it's like a psychological, it's less business focused, it's more personal.
Okay.
Yeah, but I would love to see what you do. Oh, I just hit the wrong button here. I'd love to what you see to I would love to see what you get from that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fun one.
Big five.
Any other ones that you'd recommend?
Um, well, I mean, I took the Myers-Briggs a long time ago. I don't know if there's much there. I really focus primarily on the disc. Just because when I hire people, or even when I just hired a EA for a buddy of mine up in Dallas. He was struggling with he's a very high I visionary type, and he's got a lot of ideas, but no one to do anything for it. So we created this interview process. And part of that is okay. Joe's a high I. I need someone and he's a low D. I need someone who's a C and a D to support him because they can really help him out with their strengths, and complement his strengths, right? So yeah. Anyway, I focus more on the disc profile just because I think it's a good tool to use, especially when you're helping finding team members for other people or even for yourself.
Final, in closing here, time flies when we talk.
Hmm.
What would you say you're most excited about for 2026?
I would say just I'm excited about the caffeinated contractor. I'm excited about, when I started thinking about changing the direction of it, where I'm helping out contractors without even really talking to anyone organically. I had several people reach out to me and ask for my help with the areas that I'm actually, um, creating the caffeinated contractor for. And that's something I've been thinking about for months. And then I made that decision. Boom! All of a sudden, all these phone calls came in. Steve Rosenberg. He asked me to jump in on his group and start helping out because there's a lot of contractors in his coaching network. So he asked me to join his team to focus on, hey, how do you use remote team workers and leadership and all that stuff in the trades. So I'm excited about the direction that's going to go. But I'm also excited, right now with Elevation, how I'm bringing on um, the ads guy. He's in the Philippines, and then Alberto in Mexico, doing all my sales and just closing jobs and increasing our close rate. So I've got a lot of things to be excited about, actually.
If you're listening to this podcast, I would go listen to episode 772, 581, 209. Chris. Oh, and sign up for the subscribe to the
Yep.
Caffeinated Contract.
Caffeinated Contractor. Yep. Look for us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.
Share this with a friend. Please leave us a review. We will see you next time on the Culture Matters podcast. Thanks, brother.
Thank you.